Hi, I'm Drew. Welcome to the Beggars Woodshop. We're coming to the end of this series, and we're gonna do one that may not have a good conclusion, because, well, I don't have a router for the table. But that's okay. I'll still show you the setup of a Shopsmith router table separate from the main machine. And that's coming up right here on the Beggars Woodshop. Come on inside.
This program has been made possible by contributions from our viewers. Thank you.
There are all kinds of ways to have a router with a Shopsmith. I just happen to have a router table that can attach to the Mark V or Mark VII. If I had a different base, I could have attached to the wall. And of course, if I had its own stand, I could have done it that way. But in this case, we're attaching to the Mark V. Now, I'd like to take note here. This is going to be an incomplete build. Why? Well, we're actually short one key essential piece, the router itself. Now, I'll go more into that a little later. But essentially, when you start, you've got your main plate, and you're going to draw on the back side where the holes will have to be drilled for the screws that will attach the router and this plate together. Now, that's already been taken care of for me, and there are indentations, but we'll get to that another time. Let's focus instead on installing this plate onto the main table. Now, there is an already pre-cut out hole, as you can clearly see, and you can also see there's some pieces here that are real thin pieces of cardboard, almost like packaging, and we're going to use that to kind of help keep everything smooth and level. You can see there's a tiny wobble, but once I put the screws in, everything will kind of even itself out. No power tools on this one. I want to hand tighten all this. I know a power tool would be faster, but I want a little bit more control. Okay. Outfeet's okay. We could probably come up a little bit on that side. That might be okay. Now let's flip it over. Ah, how nice. And we're going to add the main attachment to our base that also goes on to the Mark IV. If it looks very familiar, that's because it's part of the extension table. It's the same setup. The only difference is, this is a lot easier to level. Now, make sure I get the correct screws. I am following my instructions very closely and very carefully. Some people start with this, as the instructions say, but I wanted to start with the table already flipped over, because I had those pieces set up for leveling just the way I wanted them. Now, I admit, yours, if you get one of these, probably is already pre-assembled. But it doesn't hurt to disassemble, clean it up, as I did, and then reassemble. Also remember, this does not have to be perfectly aligned with the rest of the Shopsmith like the extension table does. This is a different setup altogether. Although, let's admit it, probably would be nice. I'm using a crescent, but you can also use a 9/16. Very good. Now we get to add some of the fun stuff. How about our dust shield and setup for the vac? Well, first thing I'm going to do Let's install the main post. There is a spot to attach it right here. And hello, what have we there? Oh, I have 2 spots to attach it. How nice. I'm going to attach it in the dead center one. There. Now the shield. Yes, it is pretty much the same one you're going to get on most Mark 5s and Mark 7s for your router shaper attachment. That's nice. Simple installation. Just loosen, tighten, whatever needs be. Well, that doesn't need to be dead center. Now the next part is real tricky, and I'm gonna go get a straight edge to help me out. I'll be right back. Oh, gotta go around. Tight fit everywhere I go. Okay. As I said, there are 2 methods. I could take the miter gauge, because there's a miter gauge slot, and an edge that actually is against the miter gauge, held in place, and move everything together using the miter gauge. But I'm going to use the straight edge method for this next step. What am I talking about? Talking about the fence. Now, I know, this doesn't look much like a fence, especially because it sits like this, with the short end up. I have 2 options with this. Option 1, extend onto this piece so it's higher up, or option 2, just completely redo it. But that is for future me. It really is. Looks like I have to clean up my dust shield a little bit. Try to get this underneath. There we go. I better make sure I install everything correct. That's why we have instructions. Now, there are pieces that go into the main base that are screwed in. They are already in my case. Now it's just a matter of installing the hardware. And there's a lot of hardware, folks. I mean a lot. Each one of these has, I hope I got it all. It's a form of a wing nut, spacer, and a washer. And where are my washers? Folks, when little washers and little nuts and screws drop, if you can, and most of the time, yes, get to them immediately, do it. Otherwise you're going to be looking around forever and, well, screw up your own video. Okay, now, we're going to attach. Now, these spacers don't have a particular side, but remember, it goes screw, spacer, washer, attach. When attaching this, the longest flat spot will go back away from the miter gauge track. And I know that's not a lot of fence to work with, but there are ways around it. If necessary to drill additional holes, don't forget to do so. Just make sure everything's all lined up together. Now, you can tell I'm leaving this nice and loose so that I can actually align it with the other one the moment I get it installed. Okay. Now you will see why I grabbed my square. I'm going to line up the edge with the side. Everything lined up together. And to this, my fence will be aligned on both sides at the exact same time. And that is a straight line for a router fence. Now I'm going to show you the installation on the Mark V. Couldn't be simpler. Right there, the accessory, it could go on this end or the opposite end. Tighten it down, it's locked in place. Now, I said there was one piece missing. Well, there's actually two pieces missing. Yes, the router. We'll get to that in a sec. But also, underneath here, there should be a leg. It's a support leg that's actually collapsible, extendable, however you want to put it. And I've got my Mark V headstock kind of in the way of where it would go. Obviously, you wouldn't do that. But that would be placed there for the extra support. Now, connect your dust collector up top here, put in your bits, adjust your height, etc. and so forth, adjust your fence. You got a router, maybe a little bit of a shaping job. Miter gauge, so you can make cuts going this way. Not bad, huh? Now let's answer the question. Because we all know it's going to come up. What about the router? What about the router? Well, here in the instructions, it does list the routers you will need. Porter Cable, Bosch, and Ryobi. When I say Ryobi, I mean older Ryobi, not the newer stuff. Well, I've looked up some of these, and yeah, you can find them on the used market, but a few of them, especially the Porter Cable, they're old. They're very old. But there is a way around this. According to the instructions, if you can find a router that is UL approved for the motor, which what isn't these days, has a base that does not exceed 6.5 inches in diameter and does not exceed 3 horsepower, I think you got something there. And of course, the switch must be able to be located so that the fence is towards the front of the router table or wall-mounted router table. The router switch must always be able to stay on, you know, little things like that. That, ladies and gentlemen, is this little router table. It's not very exciting because we don't really get a completed build and get to see it in operation, but it is here. Now, let me show you the video we're going to work on next time. We conclude the series with upgrades to our bandsaw. And that's next time, right here, on the Beggars Woodshop.